Welcome to CKLA Knowledge 3 Lesson 8, Hugh Gu Po. Folktales are stories that someone made up long ago and is told again and again. Little Red Riding Hood, the folktale we heard last, did not listen to her mother and was tricked by a wolf. Today, we will hear a story from a different land. The main character faces a similar conflict as Little Red Riding Hood. Listen carefully to our story so that you can find the similarities, things that are the same, and maybe some things that are different in our stories. Our purpose for listening is to identify the elements of a folktale. We're going to listen for those similarities and differences and listen to understand the word cunning. Can you say cunning? Our folktale today originated in a country called China many, many years ago. China is a part of the continent of Asia. Long ago, in rural southern China, there lived a mother and her two young daughters. Ah Xing was the eldest daughter, and Li Hua was the youngest. Ah Xing and Li Hua and their mother raised silkworms and sold their silk at the local market. One sunny fall day, the girls' mother set off to a local market to sell the silk thread they had spun. However, on this particular occasion, she had decided to leave some silk thread behind so that she could make two new silk dresses for her daughters. Before the girls' mother left, she gave them strict instructions to stay inside the house. Do not go outside. I have heard rumors that Hu Gu Po has come down into the foothills. She is a tiger that disguises herself as an old woman and tries to trick people. Please latch or lock the door as soon as I leave. We will not go outside, promised Ah Xing. I will lock the door and we will spend our time cleaning the house. We will be right here waiting for you, promised Li Hao. And so the mother kissed her daughters and disappeared into the early morning mist that was rising up from the warm earth. Immediately, the two girls set to work. They scrubbed the floor and dusted all the nooks and crannies of their small farmhouse. It was almost midday by the time they were finished. The sun was shining brightly and the birds were chirping loudly when the girls heard a knock on the door. Do not answer the door, said Ah Xing to her youngest sister. I will find out who it is. Ah Xing stood in front of the locked door and asked, Who is there? Hello, my dear, said a voice that sounded as ancient as the hills. I have been walking for many miles. I wonder, could you spare a cup of water? Ah Xing was perplexed. She knew that she should not open the door, but somehow she felt that this old woman, for old woman it appeared to be, was in deep need of help. I cannot open the door, explained Ah Xing, but I can pass a cup of water through the open window. Thank you, my dear. You are very kind. Ah Xing filled up a cup of water from the bucket that contained drinking water from their well. Here you are, she said as she passed the cup through the open window. The old woman now stood before the window. She took the cup in her old wrinkly hand and drank from it. When she was done, she handed the cup back to Ah Xing. How sweet your well water is, said the old woman. Thank you, said Ah Xing. As she spoke, Ah Xing looked more closely at the old woman. Just like her hands, Her face was old and wrinkly. However, the woman had a most particular gold and amber eyes that Ah Shing had ever seen. I don't suppose you have a little rice to spare? Asked the old woman. As it happened, Li Hao had just cooked rice for lunch. Yes, we have some rice we can give you, Li Hao said eagerly. She placed some in a small porcelain bowl. Then she rushed to the window and handed the old woman the bowl and some chopsticks. The old woman looked at Li Hao and licked her lips. Why, thank you, my dear, said the old woman, all the while staring intently at Li Hao. I don't suppose you would let me sit for a minute or two while I eat this delicious rice? Asked the old woman. Of course you can, exclaimed Li Hao, and before Ah Xin could stop her, Li Hao ran to open the door, unlock it, and open it. In the blink of an eye, the old woman was in the house and sitting at the kitchen table. It was as if she appeared by magic. Ah Shing began to feel alarmed. Are you here all alone? Asked the old woman. Yes, replied Li Hao. Our mother has gone to sell the silk thread our silkworms produce. She told us to stay inside for safety, and that is what we have done, continued Li Hao proudly. I see, replied the old woman. You are very wise girls. There are all kinds of dangers in the outside world. Well, as soon as you have finished your rice, interrupted Ah Shing, I am sure you will want to be on your way. I am almost finished, replied the old woman, who, despite her words of praise, did not seem to like eating rice. There are only two more things that I need. Oh, what are they? Asked Li Hao. Ah Shing guessed the answer just as the cunning or sly old woman uttered the words. Two young girls! Exclaimed the old woman. Once again, as if by magic, the old woman's movements were quick and sudden. She produced a sack, and before Ah Shing could stop her, she snatched Li Hao and placed her inside it. You are older, announced the old woman, and probably not very tasty. I am not sure that I want the trouble of carrying you into the mountains. As the old woman was speaking, Ah Shing reached for some of the spun silk thread that her mother had left behind. It had been spun and wound around the small branch of a mulberry bush. Ah Shing secretly placed it inside the pocket of her dress. Ah Shing had also decided that she would not let the woman leave without her. I want to be with my sister, replied Ah Shing. Very well, said the old woman. Into the sack you go. And in an instant, Ah Shing found herself stuffed inside the sack beside her sister. It was clear to Ah Shing that the old woman had remarkable strength. She carried them with relative ease. After a while, the old woman stopped and placed the sack containing the two girls on the ground. Moments later, the sisters could hear someone or something noisily drinking water. As this was happening, Ah Shing whispered to her sister to be quiet. Then she used the mulberry branch that held the silk thread to poke a hole in the sack. What she saw scared her half to death. Instead of an old woman, there was a tiger sitting on the edge of a large glistening lake. The old woman was really Hugh Gu Po. Incredibly, instead of continuing onward, the tiger lay down in the afternoon sunshine and went to sleep. While the tiger slept, Ah Shing slowly pulled at the hole in the sack until it was wide enough for her to crawl through. She motioned to her sister to quietly follow. The girls crept toward the sleeping tiger. Ah Shing reached for the silk thread inside her pocket. Then, using the thread, the girls tied together the tiger's front and back legs. Just as they were finished, the tiger woke up and roared loudly. The tiger tried to free itself, but the yards of silk thread that had been wound around its leg held it fast. The girls ran like the wind back to their small farmhouse in the foothills. They hurried until their house, slamming the door and locked it. When their mother finally returned home, she hugged her daughters tightly. "We told you that we would be waiting here for you," Ah Shing and Li Hao said together. Think about our story. Who were the characters? Where did our story take place? What about the plot, the beginning, middle, and end? Were any parts of it like Little Red Riding Hood? How about the conflict, the oh no problem? This was so much fun. I can't wait till you come back again for our next story. Thanks for learning with me.